You're locked on UConn. Escaped with a win. I don't know what else to say, but we're 5-3. Let's talk about it. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for checking out Locked On UConn live edition. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I don't know really where to begin. I'm happy we won. 5-3 Huskies, one step closer to a bowl game. But I still have this incredible feeling of this team can be so much better. And I feel like this coaching staff is completely failing them on so many levels that it bothers me to my core. In particular, when we think about the type of coaches that we have at UConn, with, from Gino Auriemma to Dan Hurley to Penders, like I just, the level of coaches. And I don't say this to disparage Jim Mora, but he is not a college football coach right now. He just isn't. He is an old school NFL coach who still thinks he's coaching in 1994, and it shows. UConn wins this game 17-10. They are now a one step closer to being bowl eligible. We're still in a situation where this team is consistently not prepared for the team that they're playing for. They have multiple people on the offensive side who come to play the game and only kind of turn it on. You can see some of that in the second half when they start to get down, or in this case, just really kind of a stagnant where the defense is kind of playing their ass off and the offense really just isn't doing much. And the frustrating part about it is you still have too many drops, too many inconsistencies with the passing game, too many inconsistencies with the running game, because even though they had a monster second half and Darrell Robinson had that 68-yard touchdown, I mean, that's a huge chunk of their production, one play. So it's just the consistency just doesn't show up week after week after week. And you'd think it would get better as time goes on, but it got better, and now it's plateaued, and now I feel like it's gotten worse. We talked about this on Friday about how this is becoming essentially a habit of this team essentially being not where they need to be. And it's good that they won. I predicted they would win. I was a lot closer than my counterparts on the show, saying that it would be about 21-9, so 17-10, pretty damn close. This offense is in shambles since Nick Evers, and it's not his fault. Nick Evers got concussed, and since then he has not looked the same. And then he returned, and he had a pretty good first half, and then he went out for the second half of the game. They are not able to use Nick Evers in the ability that he was brought to this team for. He was brought to this team to be a dual threat quarterback. He is not a dual threat quarterback right now. We are under the illusion that he can run, but he has no ability to do so. And he runs, and this is not disrespect to him. I would feel the same way. He runs scared, because who wants to get hurt? Who wants to get hurt against an offensive line that's essentially a little banged up as well? They're not blocking for him in the respect that they were at the beginning of the year. He doesn't protect himself the way he should early. There's no sliding. Everything is like a running back. And that's the frustrating part, is this team against this offense, against this defense in Rice, could have easily been a much better flowing offense if Joey Faiano was playing. I'm 100% convinced for the rest of the year that Joey should be the starting quarterback, because if Nick can't be effective in the running game, then his value as a quarterback of the UConn Huskies drops considerably. So saw some people upset about not going forward on fourth down in 1 from the 50. Why? Jim Mora is who he is. A tiger doesn't change his stripes. You can't be mad about someone being themselves. I'm done with it. I'm done being upset with Jim Mora. He is who he is. He's conservative. You make sure you save face type coach. He's not driven by analytics and what's best for them to win, because he's about what it was like to coach when his dad coached and when he coached as a legacy guy. Because I can tell you right now, if he was less of a coward on play calls, we might be staring at a 7-1 ball club that had 2 ACC victories. I'm tired of this. We're headed in the right direction. I can guarantee you I won't be getting any interviews from the football staff because I don't want them. Why would I want to interview a staff that I feel like continues to put our players in not a position where they can win, but consistently be better at football? Like, just winning the game is fine. UConn should beat Rice. We're beating. This wasn't Wake Forest. This wasn't Duke. This wasn't Maryland. The teams that were difficult on our schedule. This was a get right game, and we barely got right. We got okay. Like, what would be the version of what would be instead of getting right? We got, we did a little something. Aren't you tired of coach speak from the staff? If we lost this game, what would have been the conversation? Well, the kids really tried their best and we did blah 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 blah. No, I'm tired of coach speak. You know who we don't get coach speak from? Dan Hurley, Gino Auriemma. I don't want to get rid of this program. I think the football program has a place at UConn. I'm not one of those people, but I want them to start pulling their weight and be meaningful to the conversation. That is 100% going to dominate college athletics for years. Can football compete? Are we going to get to a Power 5 with this putrid offense, where we're kidding ourselves and doing smoke and mirrors as if this team can potentially do that? And I'm tired of faking it. There is no signs that this team is where it needs to be after even a 5-win season with games to go. Do you feel comfortable with them winning any more games the rest of the year? Maybe against Georgia State, maybe against UAB, but they're not going to beat Syracuse. They're not going to beat UMass like this. They just won't. So again, a mediocre season, and because we have a mediocre coach. That's as simple as that, guys. Like, we don't have a dynamic coach. We have one dynamic coordinator, and that's Matt Brock on the defensive side. Gordon Samus is like a roller coaster ride, feeling his way through things. Sometimes we're up here, and then it's up. We're dropping down there, and part of that is not his fault. Like, what do you do with Nick Evers? Do you start to throw every time? Do you do any option? Do you do any speed option? Do you do any jet sweeps with Skylar Bell? Do we do anything in motion with Skylar Bell? Like, Skylar Bell had like 47 yards on 3 catches all in the second half because we still don't know how to use him. We don't do tunnel screens anymore. Like, I just don't understand the direction of the football program in terms of how they're trying to focus on this team and this offense, because the defensive side is phenomenal. Whatever NIL they're paying for offense, give it to the defense. If Nick Evers or whoever got a bunch of money to come here, make sure you take all the players on the defensive side for dinner tonight. All on your tab. Get them Rolexes, whatever you got to do, because they saved your bacon tonight. And I know that's part of the game, team game. I totally understand that. But it's getting old. And this offense needs to start holding their weight, or the defensive side is just going to be like, man, we're tired of this shit. Like, that's also part of it too. Let me see if I can find. I pulled up a couple of slides and from the game, and also some tweets that I saw during the game that I thought were pretty pertinent to kind of where this fan base is. Sorry, I'm pulling them up right now, so I apologize. If you went to the game and you want to comment, please do so. Oh, I didn't see this. Oh, okay. Let's just so you know, Ty Bond, since you brought it up, Nick Evers was 9 of 24 with 128 yards and an interception. But Joey would be worse. Man, I don't know who you are. I don't care if you subscribe. I don't care if you're a fan of this show or not. That's the worst take of all time. Joe Fayano would at minimum be a game manager that protects the ball. A sitting duck. I mean, guys, are we serious right now? Nick Evers is not the answer. He just isn't. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to do this, but unfortunately, because we're in this NIL world, they paid a lot of money for him, so they're not going to sit him. So at halftime, when he was, I had 5 of 16 or whatever he was, of course, they had to trot him out for the second half. If it wasn't for Darrell Robinson in this running game, behind that offensive line that you said would be a sitting duck, this offense, we lose that game if it wasn't for our running game. Because at some point, we would have thrown an interception, did something silly, and we would have lost it. Anyway, here's the look of the beginning of the fourth quarter of this game. If you look at the time frame, that's 15 minutes ago, there is nobody in the student section. None. That's an indictment on this football team. These are their classmates. These aren't people who drove an hour to the game. They're 20 minutes away, whatever it is, East Hartford from Stores. The idea that this team deserves your full support with the product that they're putting on the field is everything that's wrong with blind faith. College athletics is not about blind faith anymore, guys. These guys get paid. Every coach does. Every player does. To some level, to some extent. I know there's levels to it. Some guys get paid more than others. Quarterbacks usually get the brunt of what we're talking about. But this is the perception. I talked about this on Friday. Perception wins, perception losses. This is another perception win. Oh, you won 17-10 against Rice? Cool. What a win. Let's go back to something else I saw. Go on social media and you start scrolling through people that you know and that you trust. I'm not going to put their social media hashtag on here, but this is a tweet that I saw that was particularly interesting because this is how most people feel about UConn football. And I can't, hold on, see if I can zoom in on that. I can't. Shit. I'll read it to you guys. Let's go back to it. I'm going to find it. It's essentially saying that they're happy that they have conflicts during Saturday games because it's so brutal to watch. That the football is so brutal to watch that they're happy that they're going apple picking or they have a kid's recital or a concert or something that they'd more than likely not do during basketball season. But because it's football season, it's like, oh, I'll do it because I don't have to watch that. I can catch the highlights. That's what UConn football is, unfortunately. You are who you are. And as much as I want this team to be competitive and be better, we're not going to get there with the current staff. We just won't. I'm sorry. And we need to get better players. We need to get better schemes. We need to understand who we have, understand the offensive scheme that we have. And it's frustrating. Just look at some of the stats. Rushing performance. 8 star of the game. Darrell Robinson, 132 yards and a touchdown on 15 carries. Skylar Bell led them in receiving. 47 yards, most in the second half. UConn's total offense was 309 yards compared to Rice's 178 because the defense dominated them. Both teams struggled on third downs. Not a shock. Each going 3 for 16 and 2 for 16 respectively. If you were betting live right now and you were betting punt on the next drive, you likely won a lot of money. I didn't have a chance to do that today. Rice was penalized heavily, 20 penalties for 95 yards. UConn, so-so, 4 for 50. And time of possession was split pretty evenly. So what does that all mean? What it means is we had one mediocre team in UConn beating a really crappy team in Rice and getting to 5 wins. So the positive is one step closer to a bowl game in postseason football, another step in the right direction. But if you're like me and you're like most rational fans that watch this on a regular basis, that don't have a high school JV lens of, well, they tried their best, that's great. You can try your best and suck too. And that's exactly what I watched. I watched a really crappy football game for most of my Saturday afternoon. And I'm going to continue to do so because I'm going to ride this train until the wheels fall off. But unfortunately, I would love to be proven wrong on another occasion, but I'm constantly proven right about how this team goes about its business, in particular the way Jim Mora coaches not to lose instead of coaching to win. 4th and 1 from the 50, we punt. 4th and 1 from the 35, down 10 last game, and we punt. Put yourself in a position where you end up having a pass interference that was 100% glaring, but they didn't call it. So then you go all ape shit in the press conference and talking about how it's an ACC issue. No, Jim, it's you. You didn't go for it, didn't allow your team an opportunity to get more time, so they weren't rushing. So you didn't have to put it in the referee's hands. You controlled your own destiny. That's what I want. I want accountability. You control your own destiny and how you react to certain things. And that's what this team doesn't do. And it's not about the players. You can talk about Joey and you can talk about Nick. And I think that's the biggest issue. I think Joey needs to start over Nick right now because I don't think Nick is Nick starts if he is a rushing threat. I agree with that 100%. He is not a rushing threat right now. But we're talking about 30,000-foot view of this coaching staff and of this team. The coaching staff is not putting this team in a position to win ball games because of the direction of which they call games. And the only person that I'm not going to put into that mix is Matt Brock, defensive coordinator. That's it. Samus, Mora. What are we doing, guys? Yeah, I don't care about what they paid him. Not one bit. I hope he got a ton of money because that's great. That's what's great about college football now and great about college basketball. But you gotta have ROI. If you got paid X amount of money and you don't return on that investment, then it looks like a waste. So, and I'm sorry if people don't like that. That's just, I don't want to just not stop shying away from it. That's the bottom line. All right, guys. Offense was putrid. Defense was great. Answering some questions here. What happened to the offense? Bro, Gordon Samus has zero idea what to do with Nick Evers if he can't run the ball. Evers is terrible because he doesn't have that element of I can run and get you 11 on 11 and then drop back and hit you with the RPO. How about the first play of the game? RPO, they throw a slant to Skyler. If it hits him in stride, he probably goes for 6. It's behind him. It's just everything is inconsistent. It's just not doesn't mix. That's the issue. Time to consider using Welliver? Dude, we're 5-3. We're not this isn't 1-6 where you're gonna start like building for the future. No, we're not doing Welliver. If put Joey in so you can win the rest of your games, get to a good bowl game, and if Nick transfers, he transfers. I don't know what to tell you. So that's what that's what I think. All right, guys, I'm gonna go because it just, like I said, like there's not much to say about this game other than the fact that I thought the offensive line did a decent job today, especially coming back off of injuries and stepping in for some guys that were down. Yeoman's work again. If you watch this and you're like, oh man, he's such a jerk. I can't believe he's being so tough on this team. Blah 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 blah. I go off of what Gino Auriemma said at Big East Media Day. Let's stop pretending that this is student-athlete stuff. These guys aren't student-athletes. These are semi-professional players that are trying to make their living. doing what they do, and they're doing it at the University of Connecticut. This is pay for play sports. That's what this is right now. If you don't like that, go watch your high school in the CIAC in Connecticut. Go to my old stomping grounds at Maloney and watch the CCC South. Watch Maloney football. It's fantastic. Platt football. Some really great kids there. And do not scream and yell at them because they're not making any money and they're putting their lives on the line and all that stuff. But these guys took money to be here. They took scholarships and money, and they are just as accountable for their actions as the coaches who make slightly more than them. And I'm sure that Nick Evers probably makes more than some coaches. So that's the head of the snake. So he gets the most reward. You get the most of the criticism. So 9 of 24 for 128 yards and a touchdown, even in a win, doesn't cut it. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I really appreciate anyone that jumped on. We had about 25 people in the chat. That's pretty great. Doubled last week. So it gives me a little more optimism that some of you care about this football program as I do. And bottom line is, I just want to see him get better, guys. And I will eat crow till the cows come home. If Jim Mora goes on a unprecedented run and he starts to change some of his style, you will see me change my tune immediately. But this has become a pattern, and I'm tired of it. Go enjoy your weekend. Go Blue. Go UConn.